If left unchecked, and unfortunately right now it is mostly unchecked, the federal government will roll over every right that you have, or at least that you think you have, because in practice, you might well not. And it is not just the Trump administration that cannot be trusted in this way. There is this new report about what the DHS and Border Patrol, ICE, all of that has been doing in terms of your privacy. And this goes back way before Donald Trump was brought back into office. DNA was apparently collected between 2020 and 2024 by DHS. It was shared with the FBI. And we're only finding out about this because of Georgetown. Their Center of Privacy and Technology has taken a look at some data that was released by US Customs and Border Protection. CBP officers apparently took genetic material from some citizens as young as 14. And again, citizens. Now, look, I think it's really strange for you to just be mass collecting the genetic material and DNA of migrants or undocumented people or whatever. But this is also United States goddamn citizens that are having their genetic material taken. In many cases, no notice given to them. They're entered into federal databases. Again, no notice that that's happening. And it's just sitting there, and it's been done for years at this point. About 2,000 US citizens' DNA was collected in this way. 2,000 US citizens, let alone all of the other non-citizens who were abused in this way. Here is one example of how this worked in practice. In March 2021, again, this is under President Biden, by the way. A 25-year-old US citizen was traveling through Chicago's Midway airport when they were stopped by US Border Patrol agents. Though charged with no crime, the 25-year-old was subjected to a cheek swab to collect their DNA, which was sent to the FBI. Their DNA was added to the FBI's database of genetic material, despite the lack of criminal charges. So there was no cause for this whatsoever. I don't believe that in this particular case there was any notice. And think about it, many of you probably have gone through Midway Airport. I know I've flown through Midway before. I'm a US citizen. There's no reason to believe that I would be any better protected than anyone else. Obviously, racism is a big part of this. I guess that could play a part as well. But 2,000 US citizens have been abused in this particular way. So you're probably wondering, where is this data going? What's this database that we're talking about? It's apparently the CODIS database. It's the one from cop shows that's generally used to store information about convicted criminals. You know, in case people get out or whatever, you can track them, networking, all that stuff. But again, they're not just putting convicted criminals in there. They're not even just putting accused criminals in there. They're putting the data from US citizens that have been accused and charged of no crime whatsoever. Thousands of US citizens, and also evidently, basically every detained migrant for years has been added to this database. So this is according to a May 2024 report, again, run through the data by Georgetown Center on Privacy and Technology. They found that CBP has been collecting the DNA information of every migrant they've detained. Border Patrol has also collected and shared the DNA information on migrant children, according to the agency's data. Initial estimates show that the sensitive genetic information of about 133,000 teens and children was being uploaded and stored in this federal criminal database for the rest of time, basically. There is no sunset on this. It just goes on and on and on, your information. And why should we be concerned about this? Well, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, it's your genetic material. Why would you let any government, even if it was an administration that you agree with, collect that information, particularly if you haven't been charged of a crime, particularly if you don't even know that it's going there? But there are other issues too. DNA data can reveal incredibly sensitive information, including a person's genetic relations and information about those relatives, regardless of their citizenship status. The information accessible in a criminal database used to investigate suspects of crime could subject people to investigations that they would otherwise not be swept up in. And bear in mind, some people who are ready to just hand over their rights, their liberties on a silver platter to the federal government for some abstract guarantee of safety or security, they might not be concerned about this. You are not allowed to just sweep up massive amounts of data and then accuse people of crimes based on that. You're supposed to have something called probable cause. And you just being in Midway Airport or being in detention is not probable cause for literally any crime CBP or later on the FBI or a local, police department or whatever might want to investigate you for. You are supposed to be protected against this. We would have assumed prior to this reporting that you were being protected against this, but you were not. And while sure, I'm more worried about the data being abused under the Trump administration. This did not begin under the Trump administration. That database needs to be purged. Every US citizen, at the very least, needs to have their information taken out of that. And I also believe they should be compensated for their rights and their civil liberties being abused by the federal government in this way. Every one of those 2,000 US citizens should be paid by the federal government for their rights being abused. And whoever okayed this, whether it's the leadership at CBP, whether it's the agents that were taking and then storing the information on the ground that knew that they shouldn't, there should be criminal charges filed over this. I don't have any faith whatsoever that they will, but if there was justice, that's the direction we'd go in.